Good morning, good evening, or good night to lovely people watching. In today's video, we will be speaking about heartbreak. This is going to be part of something usually men go through in order to grow. So let's dive into it. In today's video, I'll be using my own personal experience for you to get a better understanding of heartbreak itself. Not necessarily a blueprint to, okay, I'm going to be expecting this, this, and this in chronological order. We all experience heartbreak differently from person to person. I'm just going to speak from a personal perspective of what happened when my last relationship ended in order for you to get a better understanding if you're going through the same. Now, that being said and done, I'm not going to go into why it ended, circumstances, or in general things. I'm just going to be speaking about my perspective of what happened after the relationship ended. So, now that's said and done, let's move on. The first thing that happened was the first 2 weeks was nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. It was just numbing. Followed my usual routine. I went to the gym, showed up at work, and then ran random Saturday when I came home from work. Something felt off. And again, I just sat down. And then I pulled up my phone. And then I looked at her old profile. And then everything hit me all at once. Imagine a wound that is slowly healing. Every single time I looked through old messages, her profile, or in general anything, it would be like reopening that wound every single time, and the healing process would take longer. The reason I'm saying that is because now that I just looked at her first profile, I just reopened the wound that was slowly healing. This is very common in breakup overall. But if I could go back, I would tell myself, don't look at her profile, delete all messages, unfollow her, just get rid of it and heal and focus on yourself. And embrace all emotions, write, journal, and talk to your therapist. Those are the things I would go back and tell myself if I had the possibility. But at the same time, I'm glad I went through it in this sort of wavelength sort of way in order to understand that, I did this wrong. This is the reason the relationship ended, and that is why that happened. Anyway, as I sat there, I started crying. I started to go through back old messages, and then I didn't text. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm grateful for, that I didn't text, I didn't call, I left her alone after that moment. And that is one of the biggest mistakes, not necessarily mistakes, but one of the biggest things that usually happens after a relationship ends, that a couple of months after, a couple of weeks after, then one of either your or she sends a text back, missing or wanting to try and reignite the flame, or just missing them. You need to understand that the reason the relationship ended is certain reasons. When a relationship ends, it hurts, it is painful, and the grieving process begins. The thing you also need to understand is that if you call out, or she calls out, it is just because you're missing the person. No, you're missing the memories. Scientifically proven, it's not usually that you miss the person, it is usually that you miss the memories with the person you've created. For a period of time, I would recommend deleting their number, unfollow on social media overall in general, and try to move on. If you do, however, send a text message back, or she sends a text message back, okay, don't punish yourself because you did something human. You felt for emotions and you sent a text message back. I am, however, grateful for that I didn't do it, because then I would have just reopened the wound deeper. Remember to stay hydrated throughout the summer, because gosh, it's hot outside, but it's a really good summer. Anyway, as I sat there looking and reading through old messages, I sat there for maybe 3 hours until my phone died, because I was there reading and analyzing the entire fucking thing, thinking, what the hell went wrong? What did I do wrong? What did she do wrong? What went wrong? And then I realized, my mistakes are this, and this. It didn't necessarily motivate me, but after my phone died, I put it aside and I grabbed a piece of paper and then I just started writing. What did I do wrong? And then thought after thought after thought, just bam, 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 bam. Then it hit me. The reason the relationship ended, it was my mistake. That was the first thought I had for several weeks. And I had to live with that. I pondered upon that. For the next 4 weeks after that point, I was crying in the shower. I was analyzing. I got memories, flashbacks, and I went nuts. Because it was all this back and forth. It was up and down, up and down. Motivation was through the garbage. It was a period of time where I skipped going to the gym. And, okay. It was a point after 4 or 5 weeks where stage 2 for me basically happened. Where my brain was, okay, it ended. We gotta move on. Because I was lucky enough that through stage number 2, in my perspective, what happened to me was basically that in reality for me, I accepted that she's now out of my life. I can't do anything about it, and crying about it won't help anymore because all the tears that I ever shed are now gone. My emotions and nervous system, however, hadn't accepted that at the time. And it was constant back and forth and bombardment of my emotions saying, yeah, you may have moved on, but we haven't. And when that happened, something changed. It feels like my personality split into two, where reality was basically my brain and emotions was the other side. And there were many days, basically on the 3rd month, where I was actually sitting at home many times speaking to myself like a lunatic. But I also spoke to my therapist about this, and I just had to tell him, you know what, I've been speaking to myself lately about this and this. Am I actually going insane, or is this normal part of the grieving process after losing a relationship? Thank God my therapist said it's normal to do that and follow through with it and sit and speak with yourself and reflect upon it. But then my therapist also said something. You need to stop blaming yourself. My therapist actually gave me a deal breaker, a harsh reality, where yes, the relationship ended. Yes, maybe this and that is your fault, but at the same time, she also did a few things, didn't she? Yeah, and then I started speaking about it, and then we talked back and forth, and we came to the conclusion that the reason relationship ends is not just one part's fault. It is usually both parties. Of course, at times, in my example, I still believe that it weighs heavily, a little bit more heavily on my perspective why the relationship ended, because I did certain things, I said certain things, and I didn't really pay attention to certain things as I should have. And I feel like that leans a little more towards it's my fault. But as day by day goes, I start to lean more of the balance part where, okay, here, where it's balance, where she did something I still didn't, and I didn't like that, and there I did things she didn't like, but we came to the conclusion together that the best sorts of action is to end the relationship, and that's fine. Stage number 4 was more of the after the period of looking back and forth the messages, analyzing with ChatGPT, speaking to my therapist, having many moments of crying and fucking up my own routine, and watching how things around me started to go up and down all the time. I'm now moving into the kind of the 4th and the 5th stage at that point. Acceptance. The reason I'm kind of making it quick a video is more because of the I ain't got I ain't got a lot to say about the subject itself, because if I were to have sit down and tell you details, I would sit here for hours on end. That's why I'm shortening it down to this sort of video like that, because for privacy reasons I just don't want to speak about what happened. Moving on to the last stage, I accepted it. I accepted that the relationship has ended. I need to move on with my life, and I can't change the past. And it hurt like hell. Accepting it felt much more heavier than crying every single night. Because imagine holding on to a rope or a chain. At the end of that chain, it's your past. It is comfort, it is good memories, and is what you really want. When I was able to finally let go, not forcing change, not forcing the things to let go itself, when I just slowly let my hands go and I let go of all the memories, all the past, everything, that was the heavy part. Because at this time, yeah, my nervous system at times bombards me with certain memories, and I let it. But I don't act upon the emotions anymore. I just let my brain do its thing while I do other things. Imagine you're doing something and the TV is playing in the background with constant noise. You don't pay attention to it, but it's still background noise that happens. That is basically my brain when it was still in the healing process of her. And as it continued to happen, I started to tune it out more and more. My brain at times, still to this day, just have a tendency to just, I just did something that reminds me of what my ex usually did. A habit, and that's fine. I embraced it, I accepted it, and then I moved on. But it still hurt, Still painful, and it's fine. But the acceptance parts was much more heavy, because when I finally let go of the chain of the past and just let it into the void, I then sat there with a feeling of emptiness. As this emptiness happened, I just sat there. I just, For the past X amount of months, I went through a roller coaster of emotions. I dealt with this one in a pretty good way, according to my therapist and ChatGPT. And I was able to recover. It feels weird. But that is when I thought that, I am finally healed. That is when I was extremely wrong. Because the final stage, the 6th stage, 5th stage, whatever you want to call it, this is when it happened. After my heartbreak, after I felt like, metaphorically, I felt my heart was bleeding out, shedding the tears, and all these sort of things, my body, my heart, my brain decided to create a stone layer, a protective layer around my heart in order for not this thing to repeat again. That is the thing that I'm still sitting with right here, right now, to this day, where I'm not fully healed, because my heart is now in a protective layer of stone, barbed wire, a fortress. Because now my body, my mind, and my heart, it's now in denial of, I'm not going to let anyone do this again to me. In reality, I have accepted that I will one day find a new relationship, and one day I'll find a new woman. And that's good mindset, right? Yeah, it is a good mindset of reality, but my emotions and my heart, it's still in a protective layer. It is now so fucking full of defenses that Now I'm at the part where, this is the final healing stage that I need to conquer. Here's the tip that I got from my psychologist. Even though if your heart is inside of a fortress, protected by layer, do not push away love. Do not push away people around you. Gradually, over time, let your guard down. Because if I'm ever supposed to find a new relationship one day, I would need to lower the bridge. But I need to do it my way. If it takes another 6 months, 2 years, 3 years for the drawbridge to finally fall down in order to let someone else in, then so be it. Healing is not something that happens overnight. It gradually happens over time. The thing that my therapist also said was, the longer the relationship, the longer the healing process. The shorter the relationship, the shorter the healing process. But at the same time, every single human being heals in their own speed. That is the final part. Personal problem. Just need to let things go around. I just need to move forward. I need to just do my thing, and I need to let my body naturally let its guard down, because it's still in a high protective mode, and just like, yeah. Because, for example, not too long ago, I saw someone that resembled my ex. In my mind, I thought just, oh, cool. My nervous system went into fucking panic mode, and went just like, we're getting the fuck out of here. Even without me thinking. Fight or flight kicked in, and I just walked in another direction. Later on, found out it wasn't even her. So apparently, I'm still affected. And that's fine, to be fairly honest, because it's part of healing and growing. Honorable mentions in this video is that a few mistakes I necessarily didn't do, but things I recommend not doing if you're going through a relationship. The biggest trap I have seen, heard, or been spoken about is whenever there's a void in your chest, don't fill it with something else. Let it sink, let it be uncomfortable, but that is how you grow. If you continuously to fill the void in your heart that used to have someone else in there, or in general, there was a person that filled and you felt complete, don't go out after a relationship and have casual sex. Yeah, it might feel temporarily, may feel very good in the moment and things like that, but in the long term, you're basically just trying to run away from your problems. And one of the worst case scenarios I've seen is there's a person that told me a story once that he fell for this trap of, after his relationship ended, a few weeks later, if there was a new girl he was actually dating, and then they started to have fun, he ended up getting an STD, ended up getting herpes. And, well, goodbye goes his dream of getting kids, I guess. Not necessarily, but you get what I'm saying. That if we use our emotions to respond to something, to get rid of something, the consequences can be heavily destructive. I'm glad I avoided that stage, to be honest with you. The second thing is, if you recently broke up with your ex, the best source of action you can do, put away your phone and distract with something else. No, don't go on certain websites in order to drown the voice inside your head. It is crucial you seek help as quickly as possible. That is something I wish I did something myself. I wish I sought out help immediately when I knew the relationship ended, because this was something new that I'd never dealt with before. The same goes for the quote of every single video I say, it is you versus you, fuck everyone else, but seek guidance when you need it. I'd never experienced in my life a heartbreak at this level. Who should I thought about? What should I have sought out? the elders, someone that I went through the same thing. There was a few people in my mind that went out just like, damn, that person has went through this. I should have sought them out. But that was my mistake. I dealt with it in my own way, and I'm still dealing with it to a certain extent. But that's me. That is my problem. It is you versus you. Fuck everyone else, but seek guidance when you need it. Take care.